we got coming up here? What's a basketball, I think, or something like that. I don't know. My wife asks me sometimes, who won? And I go, I don't know. I gave them cameras, they give them back. That's what I do. But, so I'm driving to the shop today. Be here for a couple days. Nothing exciting going on this week, but I wanted to give you something. So I thought, you know what? Let's talk about why I do this. Why you see me out here, what the channel's about, that kind of stuff, you know? The stretch of road just eats the miles, you know. It's like a 3-hour trip for me, so it won't be too bad. But as you can see, we're in the frozen tundra this week. Not my favorite time of year. Just came back from Dallas. Well, I was actually in Stevensville, outside of Dallas, Fort Worth. Had a pretty busy month, man. We've been to Kansas City, Dallas, home, back to Dallas, back here. I mean, that's been the past couple of weeks. But here we go. Crossing into Ohio. Anyway, yeah, last week's show, I'm glad that Tarleton won. I think you saw I did a short from there. Otherwise, we were going to have to go to North Dakota or South Dakota. Yeah, it was supposed to be like in the negatives. So, wasn't too bad. Show day was like 70 degrees. Of course, I flew back in here yesterday into this. We should probably really kind of dive into some of these small towns. I mean, this is a path I go quite a bit. We got Hicksville. That's kind of a cool little town, little burg. Used to spend time there in my youth. Van Wert. A lot of cool little farm towns. Kind of interesting. I mean, because really, that's just what I really wanted to do when I started this, you know, was just show you the places I've seen, and, you know, if there's something cool, if there's something haunted, if there's something mysterious or whatever, you know. I just want to show you the towns, you know. I like getting off the beaten path because I'm on the road so much. I used to do a lot of, when I traveled in the old days, I would look up like places where, you know, stuff had been filmed, where movies were made. I'd try and find those spots, or when we were out in LA, I would go to grave sites and look at that stuff. I mean, that's just the part that interests me, so that's really what I want to show you guys. I think these last 10 episodes have been kind of, I didn't know really exactly where to go, so I think I put a little too much polish on them, if you call it that. But I just want to show you what interests me, If it's a cool statue, if it's a cool little town, or if it's got a story, I'll tell it, but I don't know if you got some place you'd like me to stop through, put it in the comments, I try and read them all, so. I spend about 230 days a year traveling. Bit of a grind, but it's what I've done for 25 years. So, done everything from racing to did the balloon jump. When the guy jumped from outer space, did that. Done did a lot of stuff for Red Bull back in the day. Now it's more sports that are oriented, a lot of basketball, a lot of football, a lot of baseball, gymnastics, whatever they book us for, so. Company I work for, the big networks like ESPN and NBC and all those, they don't own trucks. They don't own their gear. Kinda. They contract companies like mine, the company I work for, to do that part of it. Do the maintenance, make sure all the trucks are good, and make sure we got plenty of cameras to get so we rent all the gear to them, and we rent the people, We got two, and they'll send 2 guys with the production truck. So we'll meet the truck. I'm the second guy. First guy, he's the engineer in charge. What he does, he keeps the show rolling. Me, so I make sure that I basically do the logistics of it, I'll hand them out, I'll give them cameras, I'll give them, tripods and microphones, stuff like that they need. And if that stuff doesn't work, of course I got to do the repair or maintenance on it. So, in turn, you get to see a lot of stuff, A lot of stuff. A lot of cool stuff on the way. We might, every once in a while, we might get a dark day and get to travel around a little bit and see what's going on. Because otherwise, man, you're just hanging out in a hotel getting bored. I mean, it's... A lot of people give me the, oh, that's so cool. We're parked out by the porta potties and the dumpster, so it's not as glamorous as everybody thinks. But yeah, I have got to see a lot of cool stuff and involved in some really cool stuff. done the inaugurations, done for multiple presidents, done festivals and cool stuff. You know, some of those first shows I did was about the Lincoln Highway because I travel it a lot. US 30, that became US 30 after being the Lincoln Highway, you know. So, in turn, there's a lot of little stuff on the side roads in the little towns. There's definitely stuff to see out here. Get questions sometimes on, how I got in this business, Kind of a weird trail. But everybody asks that too in this business has some kind of a little weird, we didn't intend to come here. Just kind of ended up here. On the audio side, there seems to be a lot of musicians that kind of fell into it because they were around it. A lot of people worked for like local stations and just wanted more work, so they kind of ended up out here. Me, I got a job with the phone company. We were installing equipment and like cell sites, in the bottom of the, I didn't climb towers. No. But at the bottom of a cell tower, there's a little shack there, and there's usually a bunch of equipment in there. So I installed that stuff. Did that, and also in the main offices. Well, that business kind of slowed down a bit, It just so happened, I'd worked with a guy years prior. Actually was friends with his brother. And we were working in a bar. And he met some people that were involved in the blimp. Not the Firestone blimp, but the Budweiser blimp that's above that used to be above a lot of the shows. Well, that's like a receive site for the RF side of the business, which is the wireless side, in-car cameras, that kind of thing. He'd been working that for a while. Well, things kind of slowed down for me on the phone side. He's like, hey, we need a guy. Well, 25 years later, still here. I've drove the truck. I've been a technician. I've mounted cameras hanging off of 40-foot scaffolds. I've mounted cameras on boats and race cars and motorcycles and met a lot of people. The business itself is pretty vast. There's a lot of stuff you could do. But on the other hand, it's pretty small. So on any given show, I can show up and there'll be 2 or 3 guys I know that I've come across before, because they're all freelancers. I don't freelance right now, but I did for a long time. Some guys will tend to specialize a little bit. Some guys only do sports. Some guys only do concerts. Some guys only do golf. Or like last year, we did the Pro Bowling Tour for PBA, and a lot of those guys, that's all they've ever done is bowling. It's kind of so there's a genre for anybody. So you can really take this business anywhere you want to go, I mean, you get guys that are really shooting for the big marks. I'm kind of over that now. I'm on my glide path the other way. And, you got some guys, they'll go to do the Olympics. They'll travel the world doing that. Or I've got friends that do helicopter work. Just, and then they travel the world doing different events. Got a friend of mine, actually, he was just on a podcast the other day I saw. He's actually a camera operator on The Deadliest Catch. And he's a cool individual. I used to work with him on the Boston Marathon every year. Well, truck's not so loud now. We're not traveling 75 miles an hour anymore. Back to the 2-lane highway, Back to the small town. This is the part I like. I like to get out here and see other things. We touched the subject a little bit ago about how glamorous the job is. People don't really realize it's just this is how it goes. You get up at 4:00 in the morning. You get on a plane. You fly to the destination. You rent a car. You go to the venue. You set the truck. You go to the hotel. You get up at 5:00 in the morning to go set up all this gear. You shoot the show, and then you spend the next night hours, sometimes late, sometimes early, putting it all back in the truck. And then guess what? You go to the airport again tomorrow. That's why I tend to drive as many of these as I can, because that's the part I don't really enjoy. I don't care so much about flying. It's just the drudgery of that part, But Makes me wonder sometimes, why in the hell do I do this? But it's afforded me a good life. A lot of friends. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of fun. To me, in my life, it's better than I've done the factory work. I've done the office job. I've even worked in a bar here before. It allows you some freedom, some freedom to just do your craft, and that has a lot to say about it. You're creating something, There's always something new to learn. There's always new gear coming. Always new formats that we're going to do stuff in. 4K. Remember when that came? 4K. Now it's HDR. Now it's 2110. I mean, there's a whole everything's constantly changing because it's a technology, industry. What's funny though is that I've traveled with people before, and I do the same. As you get to where that town by the hotel you stay at, or what restaurants are there. Like in Salt Lake, you always go to the Red Iguana in Salt Lake. That's a given. Or certain barbecue places in the South. Sometimes you get a chance to do that. Sometimes you don't. But there is a camaraderie of it, working with people, and they become lifelong friends, actually. I mean, I've got guys I've worked in this industry with for 20 years. I've known them in the beginning, and I still see them now, But it's kind of like what you've seen with traveling musicians or other people. You wake up in a town and you wonder, where am I at? That happens. So that's why you try and break the monotony from time to time. But the time passes pretty quick, I'll be doing soccer. The next thing you know, we're doing football, and then we're into basketball. And, you went from summer to winter like that fast. It's like back to the restaurants, you start getting where you notice the little things, because that's the normal. I got a friend that he needed to get a few more miles for his status on United. And so he'd do a lunch run to Salt Lake, for the Iguana. He'd fly to Salt Lake from LA, fly there, have his lunch, get back on the plane, get the miles he needed to make sure he got his status. We do get that. That helps a bit. I've got a boatload of hotel points and airline points and car rental points. That's part of the perk that they let us have. Most companies let us have. We get to keep that part of it. But getting out and doing these drives, what I like about that is that I don't have a lot of people that need something from me because they know I'm driving. I'm trying to get somewhere, or I'm flying somewhere. So it gives you time to think, catch up on your reading or listen to stories. That was my first idea. Listening to a lot of true crime on the plane. It's like, I wonder what that town's like. And that's kind of how this became what it is, Kind of falls off what we talked about before with my, looking up where movies were made at, to kind of see if the stuff's still there, But you will lose some sleep. Like I said before, when I was doing golf, you were there before daylight and after daylight because you had to be ready as soon as the sun broke, I got a lot of cool toys at home that I was able to afford by doing this. I don't get to play with them much. It's kind of why I do these videos, because then I can play with this gear. If you guys like me to do a video on how I film this, let me know. I'll show you everything I got. How I got it rigged, how I do it in a rental car, how I travel with it, kind of like a, what's in my gear bag kind of video. I'll do that. I don't care. Hell, I'll even show you my toys at home. My hobbies. I'll show you that. Let me know. Why do I still do this? Like I said, it's afforded me a good life. And it's fun. Not to be pompous, you tell somebody what you do, they're interested. Well, y'all, I think you guys can help me shape this channel a little bit. Leave me some comments. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. I got a pretty thick skin. It don't matter. I'm starting to lose the light, so you're not going to see much from here on out. So, but if you like what I do, you want to see more of it, subscribe. If you like it, give me a like. But I do enjoy each and every one of the comments. That's either one. It don't matter, positive or negatives. Something. At least I know somebody's seeing what I'm making out here. Well, on to the next show. See you guys.